What if I told you that one of the strangest and most expensive warships ever built wasn't just a weapon? It was a creative masterpiece disguised as military innovation. A ship so futuristic and bizarre that it looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, not in the ocean. It sliced through waves like a knife through glass, radiating quiet menace and mystery. But beneath all that steel and stealth was something far more fascinating. A $13 billion idea that changed the way we think about design, creativity, and the limits of human imagination. This is the story of the Zumwalt-class destroyer, a warship that looks like a sea monster, costs more than a small country's defense budget, and hides one of the boldest creative ideas ever attempted by the US Navy. A warship that looked like nothing else. The first time you see it, your brain almost can't process it. No towering radar masts, no traditional deck. Just this sharp, faceless wedge cutting across the ocean, as if it came straight out of a dystopian future. This isn't your typical destroyer. It's the USS Zumwalt, named after Admiral Elmo Zumwalt, and it looks like something that escaped from a science fiction concept artist's sketchbook. Its appearance alone broke every rule of ship design. Instead of the usual outward curving hull, the Zumwalt's sides actually tilt inward. That's called a tumble-home hull, a shape that makes it extremely hard to detect on radar. To enemy sensors, this 600-foot-long beast, larger than most warships, can appear no bigger than a fishing boat. And that's where the brilliance begins. Because this wasn't just a ship. It was an attempt to make the ocean's first invisible war machine. The idea that cost $13 billion. Now here's the wild part. The Zumwalt program cost a staggering $13 billion for just 3 ships. At first that sounds insane, but the truth is that money wasn't wasted on extravagance. It was spent on innovation. The Navy wanted something revolutionary, a destroyer that could quietly dominate the seas in the 21st century. So instead of improving an old design, they threw out the rulebook and started from scratch. The result was a ship that didn't just carry weapons. It was a weapon. It used an integrated power system, meaning its entire power grid could be rerouted instantly to whatever system needed it most. Engines, sensors, or even experimental weapons like railguns or lasers. It wasn't just a warship. It was a floating energy platform capable of powering technologies that didn't even exist yet. That kind of foresight is rare. It's like building an iPhone before apps were invented, and knowing someday people would need them. A ship built like a stealth fighter, every inch of the Zumwalt screams stealth. Its hull was built from radar-absorbing materials. Its exhaust was designed to cool before leaving the ship, hiding it from heat-tracking missiles. Even its propellers were engineered to be whisper-quiet, so submarines couldn't detect it underwater. It's a ghost at sea. You could have one cruising 50 miles off your coast, and your radar might never even notice. That's what made the Zumwalt more than just a piece of hardware. It was a psychological weapon. Because in modern warfare, the scariest enemy isn't the one you see coming. It's the one you can't find at all. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite its technological brilliance, the Zumwalt quickly became one of the most controversial ships ever built. When perfection meets reality, by the time the first Zumwalt was launched, costs had exploded. The advanced systems, unique materials, and one-of-a-kind shape were all incredibly expensive to produce. Originally, the Navy planned to build 32 of these destroyers. But after the budget ballooned to $13 billion, they cut it down to just 3 ships. Even worse, its main weapon, the advanced gun system, was supposed to fire long-range precision shells. But those shells turned out to be so expensive, nearly $800,000 each, that the entire system was eventually scrapped. That's when critics started calling it a failure. Headlines labeled it the billion-dollar blunder. To most people, it looked like a financial disaster floating in the water, but that's only if you look at it through the wrong lens. Because the real story of the Zumwalt isn't about failure. It's about what happens when creativity goes too far ahead of its time. Ahead of its own era. Think about it. Most of the tech on this ship was designed in the late 1990s and early 2000s. That's over 20 years ago. Yet even today, the Zumwalt looks futuristic. Its systems are still unmatched in flexibility and stealth. It's a ship from the past that still looks like it belongs in the future. And that's what makes it a creative masterpiece. Not because it succeeded in every way, but because it dared to dream too big for its own moment in history. In that sense, it's no different from other bold creations that stumbled at first, like the Concorde jet, the Apple Newton, or even the first electric cars. They were all steps towards something greater, proof that creativity isn't about perfection. It's about pushing boundaries until the world catches up. The quiet giant. Today, the Zumwalt-class destroyers are still in service, but their roles have shifted. The Navy is reconfiguring them to carry hypersonic missiles, weapons capable of traveling over 5 times the speed of sound. So the ship once mocked as a failure is now being redesigned into something that might redefine naval warfare once again. It's a poetic comeback story, the quiet ghost of the ocean finally finding its voice. And here's the real kicker. Despite its cost, despite all the criticism, the Zumwalt achieved something that no amount of money can buy. It changed how the world thinks about creativity in engineering. The art of impossible design. The team behind the Zumwalt didn't just build a ship, they built a philosophy. A statement that said, progress doesn't happen when you make better versions of old things. It happens when you build something no one's ever seen before. That's what creativity really is. It's the art of looking at a problem and saying, what if the rules didn't exist? And sure, that kind of thinking comes with risk. You might fail, you might overspend, you might get laughed at by the media, but those risks are the price of invention. Because without ideas like the Zumwalt, we'd still be designing ships the same way we did in World War II. And that's the hidden beauty behind this so-called sea monster. It's a reminder that creativity isn't always clean or cost-efficient. It's messy, expensive, and often misunderstood. But when you look back, those are the ideas that change everything. Lessons from the Zumwalt. The Zumwalt story isn't just about the Navy. It's about how we approach creativity in any field. Sometimes your best ideas will be too advanced for their time. People won't get them. They'll call them failures, but innovation doesn't need instant success to be valuable. It just needs to exist long enough to inspire what comes next. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. Tesla wasn't the first electric car. And the Zumwalt won't be the last of its kind. But it's the ship that showed what happens when humans dream without limits. And that's worth more than any military victory. Closing thought. So the next time someone mentions the 13 billion Zumwalt, don't just think of it as an expensive experiment. Think of it as a symbol of what happens when creativity meets courage. Because whether it's a warship, a startup, or an idea, the principle stays the same. The future doesn't belong to those who play it safe. It belongs to those willing to look ridiculous chasing something extraordinary. The Zumwalt may never have fired a shot in war, but it fired something much more powerful, a challenge to the limits of imagination. And that's what makes it, even today, one of the boldest, most creative machines ever to touch the ocean. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, press the subscribe button, and also drop your thoughts in the comment section.